Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. The meeting will be starting shortly. While we wait, let's learn more about Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
Advisory Board meeting to order. Welcome to the November 29th, 2022 Rec Advisory Board meeting. We are in the Novak room and going to go have everybody run down and just introduce themselves. And if you have a title along the way, just let us know what your title is, if you're vice chair or if you're a select board representative. We'll start with you, Mr. Whistler.
My name is Mike Whistler. I am a board member.
My name is Bryn Sullivan, and I am what am I?
You're vice chair.
I'm vice chair.
I was worried I was for a second.
This is the real test. You can remember your position. Molly Cowan, select board.
Stephanie Papakostandiz, chair.
Bob Dudra, member.
Dan Provost, member.
Jenny Harrington, also member.
And we have, they can introduce themselves.
on camera.
Sure.
Greg Beeson, Exeter Parks and Rec Director, and off camera is David Tovey, Assistant Director.
And Joanna, we thank you for taking the minutes today, as always.
The excellent minutes. So, go ahead.
So
I'll stand here.
we're going to start with public comment today. I know we do have some members of the public here with us. So we'll open up the board. Do
Well,
we want-
Chris is here for the number 4 agenda item.
That'd be great. Okay.
Yeah.
We can wait for you, Chris,
Yep.
and we'll take you down. Any other public comment here?
Unless the boys want
Gentlemen?
suggestions on programs.
Ooh, we'll always take suggestions on programs.
We were talking about some graffiti at the park on the way over here. but-
That could be kind of fun.
Bad graffiti?
No, that they have noticed.
Oh, that they've noticed
Which
over
park?
there.
Boys, you're on at the rec park.
At the rec park? Okay, we'll
Duly
take a look
noted.
at that. Thanks. Make sure we take a look at that. I know that Greg was kind enough to send out the minutes from our October 25th, 2022 meeting. Did everybody have the opportunity to take a look at those?
Yes.
If so, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the 10:25 meeting, or if anybody has any addendums or adjustments that need to be made, now's the time to make those.
I move to approve the minutes from 10:25.
We have a second?
Second.
Second, so we have approval, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, we'll approve the minutes for the 10:25 meeting. And that will allow us to move on to our discussion point number 4. So Greg, if you want to kind of give a little bit of a background, I know that the board had a little bit of an opportunity to read a little more about the discussion and
Absolutely.
think of those things going on, that'd be great.
A few weeks back, the Sustainability Advisory Committee came and spoke to Parks and Rec about the single-use plastic ordinance that they're proposing. Chris and Kristen Murphy, our natural resource officer, met to discuss how we can transition the concession stand to meet the ordinance. I thought it would be best to have Chris Zigmont here, who is representing this Sustainability Advisory Committee, to kind of go through the ordinance and what they're trying to do. But the one thing that Chris and I have left our meeting off is when we talk about transition, we're talking about we need to find the product that actually would work for us. So it's not like a light switch is going to go off and no single plastics at all. So that's a discussion that is ongoing. The select board pushed back the third reading of the ordinance till December 19th. But that gave time for both you guys to discuss it amongst yourselves, and as well as the Arts and Culture Commission, I think is going to be discussing it, because this ordinance would impact town properties. So anytime we have an event, it would be, those vendors wouldn't be able to sell plastic water bottles. So just trying to educate them and talk about how it would impact each organization that runs events and so on. So, but I don't want to take up Chris's time because he's been speaking at a lot of the meetings. So, and then that way he can answer more of the questions than I can. So, after you, Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Bisson.
Good evening, Christopher Zigmont. I sit on the Sustainability Advisory Committee, Crestview Drive, also on budget recommendation for transparency as well. And here to chat with you guys about this single-use plastics ban ordinance that we're proposing. We've had 2 readings, both public hearings, and I have the ordinance with me. I won't bore you with the reading of it, but I have it handy to answer any questions that you have. Obviously, when we started to put this together and look at the areas of impact around town, certainly Parks and Rec, if not one of the largest, probably is the largest by volume, at least anyway, of areas that are going to have something to do with managing that. Certainly, as we have events at Swayze Parkway or other park property, vendors that come into town and take out a permit would be affected by this as well. But the individual impact would most heavily fall on Parks and Rec. So we discussed it, thought it'd be most opportune to come tonight and take on any questions, talk through any of the challenges, kind of give you an update of what we were talking about as far as transition. And I'd probably open that up with the idea that this is not meant to be a punishment or be punitive. It's designed to be an opportunity, right? It's not a giant secret that single-use plastics are a significant problem. We've have the stats. They're online. They're on the town website. That's not our math. That's plenty of global players that are providing the research on this. So we know we can't recycle our way out of this, right? Even in our home recycling programs, everybody in town puts their trash and recycling out every week. We spend about $1 million a year hauling away our trash, and about 48% of that is recycling. Of that gets collected from our home use, only 5% of that can actually be recycled, right? So 95% of what we actually pay to take away is going in landfill or getting incinerated or whatever. Recycling is not the answer. I'm glad we're using and people are recycling plastics. Hopefully markets will open up for that. But mitigating usage is probably the best way to do it, eliminating the consumption. It presents unique problems, obviously, for Greg and the entire department and all that you guys advise on. There's certainly answers, and so when we chatted about this, we wanted to look at this as an opportunity. It's a leadership opportunity for the town and the department. There's great opportunity to equip kids and families with both alternatives and knowledge to take home and help make their lives and our town and our waterways and everything else a little bit better. There's obviously economic impacts to all of that, so we want to talk about some of those things. And I think the biggest point we discussed the other day was, we wanted to make sure that we don't take steps until we have viable alternatives that either meet budget or exceed budget, or we have some way to balance that, right? So if it's a sponsorship or another way to look at things. One of the, by count, one of the bigger things that Greg spoke about was 1,500 or so single-use bottles of water every year, right? Everything from concession to kids that forget bottles for camp to, you can just imagine. So we've been doing a bunch of homework on this. We're working vigorously to make sure we're prepared with a variety of alternative lists to bring to the next reading, the third reading of the warrant, or the ordinance. But one of the things we're looking at is kind of a two-pronged approach. One is increasingly so, there's an awful lot of canned water available, right? We all know that the best part about Greg's Pepsi can there is it's 100% recyclable. Every aluminum product in your life already contains, there's no such thing as virgin aluminum anymore. Everything's recycled aluminum, and that's 100% recyclable. So it's got a market for it, a very, very robust market for that, and it's easily recycled and easily returned. There's water in cans with a pop top like a soda can, but there's also water in cans with screw tops. I can only find a fancy schmancy one at the grocery store for about $2.50. But it's actually, because there's no BPA on the inside or anything like that, you can crack it open, drink out of it, and kids can refill these without any risk of, bacteria or anything else mounting up in there. So that's, we're chasing these down. So I think we found these as low as 60 cents, but we're looking for even bigger supply, less expensive opportunity to get into those. So that's one of the bigger issues. And then, of course, when you really take apart what, Greg or any department or any organization pays for flats of bottled water and plastic, I mean, it comes out to, 9-8 cents a bottle. That's hard to compete with. So, part of the issue is going to be coming up with the math, right? How can we phase this in? How can we come up with alternatives, either through sponsorship or other opportunities to mitigate that? Part of that, addressing that, though, that we talked about both on the committee and with the select board and with Greg, is that one of the big opportunities is refillable water station, right? So if we can eliminate the need for, we will at least make a dent in the number of single-use bottles that will be required. And bag of props over here. I've spent about 35 years so far in the bicycle industry, and of course, we all have bicycle water bottles. There's even biodegradable and compostable water bottles. This one's actually made out of #1 plastic. It's a FDA-approved, tasteless, odorless, made in USA water bottle. You can get a couple sizes of these. You can have them screen printed with Parks and Rec on there, and your benevolent sponsor on the other side, or whoever you can help offset the cost. So one of the ideas we've kicked around also is to find a way to make these available as programs start throughout the year. That way, if for a certain number of kids they need to be handed out, for sure, certainly they could be either built in. Instead of a T-shirt this year, there's a water bottle. Different things to consider there. But at least while it's still plastic and maybe not as good as an aluminum opportunity, my wife will tell you we probably have some 8 or 10 or 12-year-old bottles in the house. They do last a good long time. They are dishwasher safe and ready to go. So we are looking at those kind of alternatives as well. But with that, I want to turn it over to all of you to come up with any questions you have for me.
Thank you, Mr. Zygmunt. Any questions we have for Mr. Zygmunt on this? I see everybody thinking. Yes.
Could we have a copy of the ordinance?
Absolutely.
Copy of that?
Yep. We
Sure.
can either have, I can ask Krista Murphy to forward that, and I believe it's also posted in the packet for the last 2 select board meetings as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Great.
you. And then what is the process with the town in regards to the third reading? We have a third reading. Does that mean it becomes an ordinance for the city? Is that the final step, or are there additional steps after that?
I would have to defer to Selectwoman Cowan on that one.
So we're going to have the third reading on the 19th, where there have been certain things that we've asked for. And then we could vote to adopt it, and then it goes to the town for the voters. Is that right? It doesn't?
No, you don't. Once you adopt it,
Then it's, okay.
Yeah.
So it's just the select board. Now, what we've done, it originally it's been kind of brewing with the sustainability committee for a while. And I think it's become more of a educational opportunity versus like, we're not going to allow you to permit events to people who break these rules or, sort of something like that. And the ordinance has been modeled after the Portsmouth one, which I'm not sure that's one of the things that we've had some questions about, like what is the enforcement mechanism, who deals with it, and so this might be a good opportunity to ask you to talk about your experience in Portsmouth.
To my knowledge, and I am not the expert, the ordinance was modified during the previous city council, and we no longer have an ordinance so much as a recommended set of standards. So there is no enforcement in place, or there's no, it's just there if people would like to follow it.
Yeah, and I think that we are. It hasn't seemed like that has been communicated necessarily to the sustainability committee, because what we're not. I don't know that we're wanting to just be advisory or like, here's a goal that we would like to adhere to. I think we do want to address and educate and help. I think what some of the concerns are, this is a big revenue stream for the pool. The snack shack, and so like how is that going to affect, are we going to put something in place that then makes us have to cut the pool, or cut the days of the pool, or impede our ability to work and serve the public through that way. And so that's the compromise language around there. We're not going to make anything enforceable until there's something that is economically viable to replace what we've talked about. Now, where I'm coming from is, a lot of this stuff is habits and like, changing people's habits. And instead of saying, well, we're going to charge you for this, it's just like, well, here are all of the things that we're going to do to make it so that you can bring a reusable water bottle. And, we're going to have like a place where you can wash it, or you can buy something that's sustainable if you forgot, but we're not going to say, you can't come and buy some water, or you can't come and buy some Gatorade, or, whatever that is, because I think that that is the other thing that has been a concern as we've talked about this, adopting this. Now, I do, and this is like me personally speaking for myself, think that in order to really change habits, we have to have something that isn't just, let's try to do this if you think about it. And I also don't want to punish people or make it so that people can't come to the town and, have their small business represented or whatever. But I do think it's something, this is something that the farmers market vendors have had to think about, because, we're saying, like, you can use plastic wrap until there's something else that's available. And so we're not going to say, well, you can't use plastic wrap because, we're not at that point yet. So I guess that's, if I'm saying anything that hasn't been part of the discussions with the select board, but I think that sort of covers where I think we all are.
Where do the downtown businesses and restaurants stand?
Well, it doesn't affect them. So it's events that are on town property or that are permitted by the town.
And for further clarity, too, there are some organizational exemptions. For example, emergency responders, human services, think of Meals on Wheels and things like that. We still have a significant plan to do everything we can to help them transition, but not at any impact to their service. So as we can work with Meals on Wheels, as an example, to identify opportunities for them to replace styrofoam clamshells with compostable clamshells, or whatever their use is, we'll do that. And obviously emergency services, they need to give out water bottles from fire trucks and ambulances, police cars all the time. So that's, again, when 5 years from now, when these are ubiquitous and they're in every car, trunk, and police fire vehicle, instead of plastic water bottles, great. We're going to help them transition, but the objective is not to impede service. So yeah, it's just town property, town parks, and town services.
Is the idea so that the town is leading the way? Is that the motivation behind this, is that the town will do this first and then hopefully we can implement something bigger, broader in the future?
Yes, I think there's certainly a feeling on the Sustainability Advisory Committee that it's an opportunity for us to lead as a town. We're also we're restricted by the state of New Hampshire. We're not allowed to regulate those other areas of public distribution of plastic. So we're going to try to pursue as much as we can to lead and show the town, go work with the town to move forward and do that. But yes.
In the ordinance, compostable items are okay, correct? So I'm thinking for the thousands of cups that are used for something like powder keg, but those are all compostable cups. Are those within ordinance guidelines, or would that be something that we would need to revisit as well?
No, compostables are great. One of the things that, and like all good ordinances, the first 2 pages are full of definitions. And so we cover all the things that what defines a single-use plastic or a single-use container. And compostables are great. One of the things with compostables, though, is part of that responsibility is that they need to make their way into compost and not into recycling. They're actually damaging to recycling, and they they provide impurities to the stream. So, but yes, and everybody's looking at the Powder House event as a really good prototype for how it could go.
Yeah, we actually did that this year where we had separations where all of the cups had to go into a compostable area. We had somebody actually fishing through all the trashes for us. We're going to hopefully have everybody follow the directions instead of him fishing this year.
Sure, and one of the things that we're planning to bring to the next select board meeting are a list of some of the organizations. There are organizations out there that come to events, whether they be town events or running races or what have you, and manage that system for you. A lot of them are volunteer as well, so that'll be the objective, to make sure we provide vendors with that kind of list of services. So,
I like the idea that we're starting to pursue this and talk about this. My question maybe is more directed to Greg, though. Is aluminum cans easier, or can you integrate that into the park system versus the plastic water bottles? Is that an easy transition?
Yes and no. Yes, Bob, it's the price point. And I don't want it to be all about revenue, but seeing the pool is self-funded. But yeah, that's easily, and Kristen Murphy was kind enough, she sent out some products that she had sourced, and then I took a step forward and reached out. One of them is Proud Source. You might have seen canned water at Shaw's. They're 5 for $8 or 8 for $5. So and Pepsi Cola is the one that distributes them. So I reached out to them and see what the wholesale price is. So that is an option. We'd prefer to have more of this, where kids aren't going to drink 12 ounces of water in one sip. If they do, our camp counselors are going to be bringing them to the bathroom a lot. So we want something that is reclosable and that they could refill up throughout the day, because that's a lot of times when they go to the concession stand now and buy a bottle of water, they'll refill it. We tell them, don't throw it away, reuse it and bring it home, recycle it. So we try to educate them, because a lot of times we used to hand out cups, which the kids were like, all right, done. Well, that we stopped that habit right away. So it is, but it is an opportunity as well. Back when I was in high school, now I'm going to date myself, we used to save the aluminum cans and then sell them for scrap metal. Could be a good revenue source for us down the line, but it would be an educational process on our part to make sure everyone puts the cans where they're supposed to go. So.
Didn't we provide plastic water bottles up until a couple years ago to campers along with their T-shirts? When did we stop doing that?
We stopped doing that because of COVID.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha.
David and I have actually already decided we are gonna bring it back.
Great.
And anyone looking and listening, we would love to have a sponsor, so we could get more of the aluminum water bottles that we could provide to all the campers. Now, anyone that has had a kid in summer camp or attended the pool sees the array of lovely lost and found stuff that we always put out daily. And over the course of the summer, you're probably talking a few dozen water bottles that parents probably are asking their son or daughters, where is that Yeti I bought you? Oh, I lost it at summer camp. Well,
Something as simple as, I think it's very inexpensive for us to potentially purchase a bunch of Sharpies, and kids just have to put their names on them. Then we know who they are.
And
I always know who's
we did do that, and they still. But that's why we'd like to do the metal ones more, because the ones we had before, the Sharpie rubbed off. Yeah. So we want to make it as easy as possible. So that's something, and maybe these water bottles could also be for sale in the concession stand as well, because we have those nice, fancy new water filling stations that will be active this spring. But I think the other dilemma is the price point, because we don't want to push the kids to buy soda. I was just totaling it when before the meeting. Alarming enough, even though we talk about health and fitness, the pool sold about 1,400 cans of soda this summer. So it's a lot of sugar. So we'd rather see that go down and have them buy water or Gatorade more. And then finding an alternative for Gatorade. That's the one thing. They do sell canned Gatorade, but it's very limited, and the price point is extremely high. So trying to find that balance. We've talked about packets, but not really sure if kids are going to buy a packet. They'd have to buy a water or have a water bottle with them. So that's all things that we've been open to, but baby steps, as Chris and I, we don't want to leap before we look over the cliff.
And I do think that there's enough language in the ordinance that gives Parks and Rec a ton of flexibility in terms of developing a roadmap or not requiring anything before it's all worked out. And I mean, the other thing that I want to say is, I think that, when we think about really changing habits, this is such a small thing, but I do think it's an important step to take, because, we're in a crisis. And we're not going to solve, the climate crisis or global warming by limiting single-use plastics here. That's certainly not what's happening. But it is a good way to, even though it's with our, our own Parks and Rec department, but that's the point of contact where you have the most influence with families and kids. And so if they're growing up with thinking about this stuff, I don't think it's a bad thing.
This summer could be a good analysis where we offer the water, but we give the water bottles to the campers. We see then what the impact on sales are. Like if suddenly, and having the water bottles for sale as well, seeing if suddenly giving out 200 water bottles to campers, do we suddenly see a dramatic reduction in sale? Because if it correlates with both, it would be good, but we don't know that. We don't know that yet. And one of the things is we put all these great water filling stations in. We don't know what the impact is because our revolving fund pays for everything. And as you know, the pool loses money every year. No municipal pool makes money. Brent can attest to that. It just it doesn't make money. It's just a good service to have. And then the caveat is the concession stand is actually profitable, which offsets the loss of the pool. So it kind of tries to balance itself out. So it'll be an interesting analysis to really see, but we won't know. It's going to take a little while.
Greg,
Jen, did you have something to say?
I could just say, from my observation from the hours and hours I spent in the snack shack this year, I would say the biggest consumers of the water is the public. It's not the campers. A lot of the campers, they already bring their water bottles. They're a big consumer of the soda and the Gatorade. I think it would be a detriment to the snack shack to remove those items. I understand we would have to find some sort of balance between the two. I don't know if it's completely practical to just completely get rid of them, to be honest with you. We have families that come in that have nothing to do with camp, and it would be unfortunate on those 90-degree days to have nothing or that's affordable to offer them. That's my initial thoughts and concerns. And then my next thought is, all right, so you want to hit plastic water bottles of water and Gatorade. What's next? What are we going after the spoons? Are we going after the paper cups for the ice cream? Like, what's next to the point that if we're talking single use, like how far down are we down this hole are we going to go? Like what's going to come? What are you going to come for next?
One
is
thing
my
I have
question.
offered up the spoons. That's easy. That's an easy one because we priced them out for powder keg and they're comparable. So
For compostable spoons?
yeah, but then lies. They're just getting thrown away. So really, they're being mummified. They're not really. So we don't. There has to be another solution there. I don't know what it is, and I'm not the expert.
Maybe, as I understand, and Jen, maybe this answers your question, wouldn't you then put the aluminum cans in instead of the plastic water bottles? That's what would be offering the public.
Yeah, it sounds like it is. I just don't know if it is a viable option that, $1,800 bottles of water was $1,800, and if they're 8 cents on the dollar cost, and now we're talking, I don't know what your margin was for the canned water. I'm not opposed to selling canned water. I just don't know. It's.
Yeah, last year we profited $1,375, I think, off of water.
To Jen's point, I'm for the concept, but I think $4,500 was the net from the snack shack.
Yes.
That's not inconsequential money to a budget for the pool that loses money. And I guess one question for Christopher, has there been any outreach to sponsors to try and replace that $4,500 somehow?
Well, I guess I'd say these are very early days. We're just having this discussion now. Certainly sponsorship is one of the first things that came up. A couple of initial conversations we even had about canning water. We actually reached out to a couple of local brewers who have the ability to can water right in our own town to start those conversations. So I think it comes back to, as Selectwoman Cowan said, there's enough language and flexibility in this that we won't move forward and take anything off the table until there's a viable option that meets or exceeds the budget capability. If this was $2, I think I got this at Hannaford, and I think this was $2.50, yet people line up all day long to buy Fiji water bottles, floated here from Fiji for $8.99. So I do respect that there's a market up and down the entire price spectrum for water, and our objective is, and this is on the pricey side for aluminum can of water. So the objective then, if you look at the whole retail balance sheet, would be to, if we lose a couple of cents, a nickel or a dime or a quarter on the water, that we're going to look to find a way to make it up somewhere else as well, right? To come back to address the other food delivery products, really excited that a couple of our retailers in town that are leading the way here have actually shared with us their vendors Laney and Lou and Anna and a few others have stepped up and said, here's our vendors that we buy our compostable containers and spoons and things from all over. Anything else you need, just let us know. So we're coming equipped to these conversations with viable alternatives. Are they more expensive in some cases? Sure they are. That's going to be the reality of kind of saving the planet, I think, is that we're going to have to spend a little bit more here and there and manage those impacts and figure out where we can make a little bit more money, where we're in, and kind of offset that balance.
I'll also chime in that if the town is so committed to sustainability that they're passing an ordinance, that would then decrease the ability for the rec department to generate income at their outdoor pool in the summer. Perhaps the town could allocate monies and support this ordinance with funding so the rec department doesn't have to beg, borrow, and steal from every person in town to try and sustain a service for the community.
Completely agree.
I mean, the thing that I struggle with is wanting to lead the way and also not I mean, like, that is the crux of the problem here of, like, we can't, we don't want to decrease the pool. We don't want people who can't afford, to make these choices, to be forced into making these choices or have no other option or not be able to come to the pool. And so, that's why I think there's so much flexibility in the language that says, we're not going to, this is, and that, I mean, that was my point, I think, in the last meeting of, like, this is an educational opportunity. This is not some sort of, like, mandate or penalty. But I do think that it is crafted in a way that I feel comfortable. We are not going to be driving kids away from the pool. We are going to be able to offer the kinds of refreshments that you need to have a healthy and safe outdoor summer experience. Is my thought.
May I, how are we driving kids away from not coming to the pool? I guess I don't understand
Well, I
the
think
difference.
I think that if we said, well, we're not going to offer anything that is not a single-use plastic, and and that means, like, the Exeter pool doesn't become an affordable place to come if you are worried about feeding your kids, or you forgot your water bottle, or or whatever.
But we're talking water bottles. What are we looking at difference-wise, price-wise? I guess right now, I don't know, what do we charge water versus what we could potentially charge with the recyclable water bottle? Curious.
I think the margin on sales of Gatorade and water for something like the Snack Shack are pretty drastic.
For example?
I don't know. What's 10 cents for a bottle of water that you sell for $1? Gatorade's probably 35 cents. You sell for $1.50.
Is that right?
67 cents and we sell it for $2.
So,
What, the water, the bottle? Gatorade.
and I think we kind of think about the kids and the campers in the pool. There's a lot of people that come. They want to have the Snack Shack. I'm all for figuring out another way to do it. I'm not trying to say I'm not, but I think having language that slowly work our way towards it is a good thing, because I think the income's important. I think having the service at the Snack Shack's important.
Yeah, I mean, that is and I will not speak for everybody on the select board, but, like, that's the crux of it. It's like, how do we live our ideals and lead the way and also be responsible here.
Well, I think it's even in the language of our charge, it's common sustainability language. It's a three-legged stool, right? It's social sustainability, financial sustainability, or economic sustainability, and environmental sustainability, and you can't have one without the other. So the objective isn't to cripple the pool or make it unaffordable for families to bring their family there and enjoy the time. And I think, boy, with very little trying, we've already gotten this can of water that's reclosable down to 40 cents, and we've just started trying. So I'm incredibly optimistic that we're going to get ourselves into an acceptable margin. We might not get down to 10 cents a bottle, but we're going to get pretty darn close. So,
Yeah, and you know, Bob, to your question, I think like if we were to implement this now, you know, it would mean, you know, a $5 Snack Shack purchase versus a $12 Snack Shack purchase, which is not anything that any of us want to see. And I think that that's your point too, probably.
Yeah, I just don't, I think that the campers do a really good job at bringing their refillable water bottles. I think it's the public and the people that choose to come. We also try to balance bringing in stuff from home so people purchase stuff from the Snack Shack. And if we're not offering affordable options for them, or any options at all, if we say we're going to move away from the single-use plastics, and so now we're not going to offer Gatorade because there's not a good alternative, then I just think that, I personally, I think we need to have more options before we put language that bind us, because when language is ambiguous, I hear you saying it's flexible and it's movable. Well, that goes both ways. That goes where, oh, no, it's all right, you have another year. And then it's like, we put this ordinance, get those water bottles out. And when you have ambiguous language like that, that is flexible and sounds really good, it can be used to flex both ways. And so that's my concern, is putting language in ahead of having viable options, especially the Snack Shack's not opening in a week. The Snack Shack's gonna open in 6 months, 7 months. So we have time, so why the urgency? I understand there's an urgency, the global impact, but I wouldn't be for passing the ordinance right at this moment. And to Bryn's point, if the select board and the town is headstrong in this, then they need to start putting some more money in the rec board and stop making the rec department, stop making the rec sustain itself on nothing.
And one other point is the water fountains. So right now, all water that the Parks and Rec uses comes out of a revolving fund. So again, it's coming out of a revenue source of ours. This is going to be a good market gauge this year in 2023, where once they're up and running, how much gallons of water we actually use in the 5 water fountains. Because ideally, we would like to have a water fountain in every park, because you want people to bring their reusable water bottles. But at what point can the revolving fund sustain that? It can sustain it for a little bit, but it may be the bigger discussion down the road. Like, should kids playing soccer pay for someone drinking water in a water fountain if the town wants this? So it can go both ways.
I think there's definitely, what's resonating in my head is the difference between recommendation and ordinance right out of the gates. As Bryn was saying, with Portsmouth, there's a recommendation, and yes, recommendations can be very loose. I know the word strong recommendation can, push it in a different direction, but starting out for something like this, would it be pertinent for us to look and say, until we have everything ironed out, maybe we start with a recommendation, and then as things become viable, affordable, and comparable, then look to going in that direction, because it is a process and it is a transition. A recommendation is certainly a smooth transition over to an ordinance if the ordinance makes sense.
So the language in the ordinance, which I encourage everybody to read, even without a Human Services and Parks and Rec exemptions or exceptions, has a 9-month written in the code already, a 9-month sunset to use existing materials and products and things like that, and that's plenty of time. I guess I'd say, had an old boss used to tell me, don't let perfect be the enemy of better. Yes, it would be great to wait till everything was just dandy and we had an answer for everything. But we'll never change. We'll be right back here this time next year, drinking out of plastic bottles, wondering what we're going to do about it. So the objective of this ordinance was to get people moving in the right direction. It's not punitive at all. If you read the ordinance, it's not punitive at all. And we've got the commitment as an organization, as an advisory board, to work with every single town department to make that transition and help them find solutions for each and everything. I don't suspect that, for example, in the case of Gatorade as a brand and product, it's a very popular product, and until we find a viable solution, you guys are going to keep selling Gatorade until there's a viable solution, or Gatorade puts it in aluminum cans. That just is the common sense of it all. But if we were successful in replacing single-use water plastic bottles with single-use aluminum cans or multi-use aluminum cans, that's progress. That's a step in the right direction. It would be 20 years if we had to wait for every perfect solution to pass an ordinance, especially one that's not punitive at all. It's really built on coaching, not punishing.
Is the school department considered city property, and so would they have to abide by these new rules?
No.
No, they're not
Nope.
considered city.
I understand only if you bring a field trip to Swayze Park, I guess. So.
Okay.
So
I think
one other,
ultimately, it part of this is also like who bears the brunt of the cost, and it's to Greg's point, where like, and you think of like the water bottle filling stations, like who's paying the water bill for that? The rec is, and where does that money come from? That comes from the people that are signing up for basketball and soccer and the programming. So I love the idea of leading the way on this. I completely agree with Chris's point about we're here in a year from now if you continue to just say, well, let's wait. So I do think something should happen, but ultimately who pays for it? And if it's going to be the kids signing up for soccer that pay for it ultimately, because we're going to have to increase the costs to make the margins work, I think that's a hard message to say, yeah, Exeter's leading the way on this and Parks and Rec is leading the way on this, but you all are paying for it. And I think that's
It's another way for
A tricky
Exeter to
message.
avert, it's another way for the budget of Exeter to put the burdens on the residents rather than figuring out a solution of what keeps the recreation department sustainable through the operating fund. And it all ends up having to come back to the people who are participating in the rec.
yeah.
one other thought of consequences. We've spoke about pickleball tournaments, soccer tournaments. A lot of those events bring their own vending setup. And
Yeah.
what are they going to do? Are we going to lose those opportunities in the future? If a group, a lot of times those groups are going to bring their own stands for food or whatever, snack shack, whatever you want to call it, pop-up tent. Now, well, if we go to Exeter, we can't sell anything.
The language is clear. That's correct. If like any vendor that would be at the farmers market or any of the music festivals or things like that, with their permit is the understanding that the distribution of single-use plastics would not be allowed, and that forewarned is fair warned. We have a list of suggestions in places that they can buy their supplies through, non-single-use plastic supplies. But yes, that would be correct.
And again, we always get tied up on the money, but it's huge. The rec department's always struggling to keep costs low for the people who take advantage of our programs, and it seems like financially the burden hits here hardest, in my opinion. Again, I'm not discounting the effort. I'm for it. I carry my aluminum water bottle, and so do my kids. They lose a lot of them. They're expensive. But
They're at the pool.
yeah, they're long gone. Christmas is coming. But I just think, again, I think the financial burden really hits hardest on the rec department, and that bothers me.
The notes I'm taking on this are very much that one, the big part of the discussion with Greg's going to be just really working on the budget, what items generate what revenue, how do we keep it level or higher, and make it a viable thing. I think the viability of it is really is the discussion.
And just full transparency, when Chris said he's on the Budget Recommendations Committee, he's also on our subcommittee that reviews our budget. So he knows. Very small. He knows, well, very small volunteers. He knows exactly like how much our budget is. It's very razor thin anyway. So we don't have any real fat. Our budget is down 2.5% this year. Down. I think we're the only town department that is down. So.
And I think what Mike was saying as well, this year is growing a little bit differently as far as tournaments go. We've got the pickleball tournament, which is going to be bigger this year. We've got softball coming in for tournaments this year, soccer coming in for tournaments this year. We've got a lot of people that are going to be coming to the town to use the facilities that are going to want to use concession while they're here as well, bringing their families because games go back to back to back. Some people are down at the pool in between games and whatnot. So I think it is something that is certainly puts some pressure on as far as being able to do what we need to do to support people that are coming to use our facilities. At the same time, I love the idea as well of transitioning to something like this. It's just the details that are in there. When I know you said 9 months, where did that number come from that says at 9 months we're going to be ready to do this? What if we're not? Then what happens? And I guess my biggest question is, what are you looking for us to do as a committee today, actionably? Are you looking for a recommendation? Are you looking for just us to hear you out and to discuss it?
Well, I guess a couple of things. To go back to the top, yes, 9 months. The feeling that was a compromise number, less than 12, more than 6. We're certainly happy to listen to other suggestions for that. The feeling was, though, if we get to January 1st and this does get approved, that's 9 months of opportunity to talk to every single group that's going to bring a tournament here or there, saying, hey, next time you guys come back, here's our policy. And this is not a unicorn thing. There's more than 100 towns in Massachusetts that have single-use plastic bans. All over the country, this is happening. So we're kind of falling in line with what's actually happening. So they're not just hearing it, won't just be hearing it from us and like, oh, that's a crazy thing those people in Exeter are doing. They're hearing it elsewhere as well. So it's language, and it's kind of what towns are doing in states and municipalities and counties. So that 9 months gives us the better part of a year for all those points of contact. Every music festival, every opportunity for a farmer's market, it's that opportunity to help them plan, to share the list that we've created, and there's more out there. We're not, we can't find everything, but at least get them pointed in the right direction to come back and build it in. I will say that there are some of our mobile vendors in town. Oba Noodles comes to mind. There's a few others that do mobile vend and have already conquered sustainable packaging, and boy, they still have a line out in front. So I know it is a surmountable task, but the idea with that 9 months is that we can have that time to have those conversations and make that information available for the next time they come back.
Okay, just to follow up on that, is the 9 months to have the conversations, or is the 9 months to make sure that there is a comparable product or comparable price? Because that's a big difference. There's a difference between having a comparable product and comparable price, to have that discussion and have them say, okay, well, we're going to be able to level set and make this happen. But then there's 9 months to have a discussion. They're two totally different talking points.
Agreed. So for Parks and Rec and Human Services, they have a different set of rules. For vendors or outside organizations that come to vend on town property or participate in festivals or other organizations, they, by 9 months, it'll be in full effect for 9 months from whenever this passes.
Okay.
Another question, so once this is in place, is there a future plan for this, like to get the school property online, to get, like, what's the next step? Because I think that, like, what's the long-term vision, which I would personally love to see? If the pool has to do it, I would love to see high school have to do it? I would love to see, if we're going to do this, then what's the plan to do this? Because by saying that we are, a single-use plastic community, we're not. We're just the town is doing it, just town property's doing it. So it doesn't seem to have, the totality of this defines our community yet.
No, and that would be a big win for sure. I mean, I think, a week ago I gave topped off the second reading with a discussion about seatbelts, and it took better than 50 years to make them standard practice and accepted, and everybody fought them for cost and discomfort and difficult to use, and what we take as obvious and ubiquitous now was a very hard row to hoe. This will be, if we get this far, and we lead with this, and we show what a town can do, and we show that there are viable alternatives for every single-use plastic out there, which there are, that's a big win. Then we can go to SAU 16 and say, look what's happening over here at town property. Gladly have that discussion. But again, it would be just us advising. I don't think we have any pull any rank on SAU 16.
No, I was just wondering if the committee had a long-term plan and if they had a phasing strategy that would be saying, okay, our first 5 years is to focus on the municipality and town property, and then year 6, we're going to start hammering away at businesses or schools or what have you. I was just trying to understand the bigger vision.
I mean, as far as single-use plastic, we're obviously working with energy on energy topics and things like that. For single-use plastics, I think this is about as far as our purview could reach. I'd love to, lobby the legislature to allow us to regulate our own plastics in our town, and maybe that's the next step. I don't know, but we're really focused on getting through this one first.
Okay. Well, how come the school can't be counted as the town?
Stratum is where CMS is, so I think that would be a completely different jurisdiction because it's not
Main
Exeter to
Street,
begin
Lincoln
with.
Street.
Main
SAU
Street and Lincoln
16
Street.
is
SAU 16 is an
authority of
entirety.
Those properties. They're not owned by the town.
They're not town-owned properties.
So Lincoln Street School and Main Street School aren't on town property or aren't owned by the town?
They're owned by the SAU.
Fascinating. Thank you.
Yep. Same reason we can't use the fields
I
without
assumed that
permission.
they were
Yeah.
town property.
No, we had to go through some hoops to even try and use the fields at the high school, even though we're all residents of the high school because they're SAU. We had to go through some major hoops to talk through SAU to try and get on their fields to use their space as well. So it's totally separate.
Got it.
So if this ordinance passes with the 9-month period, say January 1, it passes, so a pickleball tournament that wanted to sign on and come here in September would be under the rules of this ordinance.
If it passed in December, yes.
If it passed in January, October 1.
So they could not have any single-use packages.
They could not distribute, yes. I mean, if you bring it for your personal use, the language in there, all the definitions and exceptions, if Kristen Murphy brings her lunch to work and it's got 10 single-use plastics in it and she crumbles them all up and throws them away, we can't stop that.
Right, but a soccer entity or a pickleball entity or a softball entity that would want to have a tournament at our rec park could not have any concession with single-use plastics.
They couldn't have concessions that had single-use plastics that were readily available substitutes. So it would be the same, it's sort of the same thing.
Same thing, right.
Like, so, you could still have cling wrap or whatever, there's no,
But you couldn't sell Gatorade.
you could.
You could,
yes.
because we haven't found,
there's
we haven't found a substitute for Gatorade yet, so.
So to Mike's point, is everything going to have to be run through a committee, like where does the permission land?
Permits are issued by you,
Permission.
and then I think enforcement's by safety, our health officer, I believe, so.
Who determines readily available?
Right, that's what I mean. Not
Right,
like
I know
you're
what
at
you
the
mean.
place so you're
Right.
going to get a ticket, but like as you're planning,
Yeah.
how do you run, who?
Yeah,
what's
if I
the
say
process?
Gatorade's readily available, but Mike says it's not, who decides?
Well, actually, and I want to clarify, and this is actually, and I have to dive a little deeper into this. In that specific instance where it wasn't the rec distributing Gatorade, because we haven't found a solution for that yet. It was an outside vendor or an outside permittee coming in. They would not be allowed to sell Gatorade or sell Coca-Cola in a bottle, in a plastic bottle. So because they aren't the town in this narrow circumstance, they would not be able to do that, correct?
Oh, I see. Okay.
So just like they couldn't do it at the next event on Swayze Parkway.
Right.
Now, for example, if this passes, say, January, what about those events and those corporations or groups who have come to us and already signed contracts to do tournaments next year? Are they grandfathered into being able to provide those if that's part of their service? Or are we going to potentially force them out if they decide not to comply because it wasn't part of their contract?
They would be in the 9-month window to talk about, for instance, the pickleball, they actually, our concession stand is their concession stand.
Right.
So they're both pickleball tournaments. We tell them, funnel your people to buy
Right.
product
Softball
from
would
us
as well.
because not only they're paying to use the facility, but they're also, those are two of the biggest weekends we had for revenue-wise.
Right.
So softball, when Riptide held theirs, they had a little concession stand up top,
We will not.
and they that would be difficult for them to, but
Seacoast United will be directed to the
Yeah.
concession stand, so
Yeah.
I do know that. But
so that we'd rather have it where if we can control it and make the revenue, trying to. The Walmart there, you sell more, you make more revenue. That's pretty much what we're trying to do.
Right.
Yeah, if I recall, I played in a couple of pickleball tournaments, and I don't recall the pickleball corporation selling any food. I think it all went to the concession
Yeah,
stand,
the
so
only-
I don't recall any
yeah.
products.
The New Hampshire Senior Games had, I think, 15 cases of water donated.
Right.
So that's the only thing.
Just for the players, I think, at that
Yeah,
time, but they
yeah.
didn't sell any.
They didn't sell anything.
And
No.
it was, you say it was the biggest?
Two of the biggest weekends for revenue-wise at the
Fundraiser?
concession. Yep.
So donations are going to fall under these guidelines as well, or just sales?
Distribution. So giving away, selling, both count.
Yep.
Okay. More discussion on this, guys? Okay, so to my final question that I had for you, what were you looking for from us as a committee?
Boy, I guess, I felt I came here to answer your questions and inform as much as I could on it. I guess I'd leave you with, I hope if you do log on and read the ordinance and consider everything we discussed tonight, please come back with any questions. I'd love for this committee to support it and be our partners in leadership and helping get our town to a place where we can eliminate single-use plastics and do it in a way that doesn't negatively impact either revenue or our town, but actually is a positive. So,
All right, thank you, Mr. Zigmont.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for the discussion. This was great. All right. Any other comments or any other discussion points around the single-use plastic here? Greg, anything else you wanted to touch on?
No, I think that was a very thorough discussion.
Okay, great.
A lot for you to think upon
Yeah.
as a committee.
Yeah, thank you, and we'll make sure we get the ordinance out to everybody. We
I'll
can
send
have,
it first
Kristen's
thing
going
in
to
the-
send that
I'll
to
send it
us.
to you first thing in the morning.
Great, so we can read through it and have real specific questions, and we'd love to have Mr. Zigmont come back once we all have a little bit more of a handle on that.
And then
Thank you.
especially if any of the board has questions, you can email Molly as well, like, hey, if during the third reading, here's a question that popped into my head after the meeting. Could you bring that up?
And please do come.
No, you can also, yeah.
But just to clarify, on the 19th, please, the select board could vote to make this an ordinance, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, after the third reading, they can vote to make it an ordinance. They can also vote to table it for further discussion at another time.
All right, if there are no more questions or no more discussion points on this, we'll move on to the 10 Hampton Road update.
Yeah, I'm going to try to go through these quickly because
Thanks.
it's 8 o'clock and I know everyone's tired from working all day. 10 Hampton Road update. Unfortunately, we did not get CDBG. Too many projects, not enough money. Typical, which is too bad. But there's still hope for the governor has proposed a community center fund. I don't know where it is. He proposed it in September. We had the election in November. So how quickly the executive board, because it does need to go through the financial committee in the House and the Senate and before it goes to the executive board, but he wants to put $20 million into a fund to go towards community centers it's a 50-50 match up to $1 million. So if it does get officially voted in, we'll be coming back to you to brainstorm how we can raise money to get the 50-50 match. I already know one thing, but I'll keep it to myself of how to get it. But we are moving forward. We got a requote on doing the first floor to get in there. The thing we keep running into is we definitely will be going to the select board to ask for permission to expend some of the $100,000 to have a design engineered plans, so any contractor can actually methodically go through and make sure things are renovated on the first floor. That's not going to hamper renovations to the second floor. So that will be coming, as well as an opportunity where I'm going to suggest using revolving fund to make up the difference to try to get us into the first floor. So that's right now our revolving fund is very healthy. We're projected probably to end the year with a balance of about, I'd say, $190,000. So, which is outstanding for where we were during the pandemic. So, happy to report that. I'll just go right down, Steph,
Yep,
if you.
perfect. Thank you.
Number 6, sidewalks. Bryn actually reached out to me and wanted an update on the sidewalks, having 10 Hampton Road voted in March. That's one of the things I already piqued the interest of Public Works and Planning. I reached out to both. As of right now, they haven't redone their sidewalk plan. Speaking to our planner, Dave Sharples, he very much would be open to applying for a TAP grant that we got for Kingston Road, for instance. So that would be an opportunity where we could get some grant funding for, say, extending the sidewalk. How far, I don't know, but at least we got to get one project off, as Molly knows. I haven't said on the board. This Kingston Road project has been very, very long going, and talking to Public Works today, they're hopefully will be putting that out to bid this spring. But so the sidewalks are in their minds. They understand it. Planet Playground update. There's still no update from the current owner, so that's really where that is. This one I want to give kudos to David Tovey, Assistant Director here. AARP sponsorship of Townhouse Common. This summer, David applied for an AARP grant to help with renovations of Townhouse Common and continuously to improve it. We did not get the funds, the whole grant, which was about $26,000? 18,000. Oh, 18,000, sorry. But AARP New Hampshire reached out because they have excess funds, and they're going to be sponsoring our new benches for Townhouse Common through our Memorial Bench Program. So AARP will be getting new benches. They said $5,000. So that's outstanding. We're excited about that. Summer camp scholarship updates. I'm happy to announce that the Kiwanis Club has stepped up and has offered $2,400 for 2 sponsors. I plan on sending out a letter to all the nonprofits in town, a call to charge to match said funds. So hopefully we can. But there's also another idea. As you know, pickleball is popular. So Don Cloutier, one of our pickleball coordinators, wants to do a small pickleball tournament this spring to raise money towards scholarships for our summer camp. So we want to keep it very small, manageable. Don is in Florida or going to Florida soon, so he's not available. But we think it would be very manageable between our department and the passionate volunteers we have in pickleball, Bob being one of them, where we could run a nice, efficient little pickleball tournament and raise a few $1,000s to go towards scholarships. So a much needed thing. Powder keg. We have closed our books. We officially made over $33,000 each. The great thing is tickets go on sale Thursday for 2023. We are back to the original format, kind of. It is if you can buy. I mentioned at the last meeting a VIP ticket. And a mini session. We are going back to the reusable cups. So we'll be moving away from compostable and try to reduce waste altogether. So that's a good thing.
Are we going to not make them glass?
They're not going to be glass. They're the very fancy looking.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, even
Ooh,
better.
very nice. What else you got
Maybe
in
we'll
there?
have to price that out.
Chris, what else you
What
got?
prop you got?
That's awesome, and it's a good size, too.
Not
like
compliant
it.
for the liquor commission, FYI.
Very
So,
nice.
but that is definitely one that we'll look into. So we're excited. We think we'll have a few. So if anyone's looking for last minute Christmas deals,
Nice.
this is a great stocking stuffer. So they'll go on sale at 8 a.m. on Thursday morning.
Can you get something else so that we can put that on social media and we can
Yeah.
get that out for people? If
It
one
is
of you
on
could-
social media already.
All right, could you forward that
Yep.
at least out to us, the invitation, so we can get that out
Sure.
for people for Christmas ideas? 'Cause I think it's a really good one.
Absolutely.
Do you know Well Told, Dan Gutstein's engraving company in
Nope.
town?
They're awesome.
Yeah, Mary Page just did a story on them. They're amazing.
They are.
do really cool stuff. They have like a map of Exeter,
Yeah.
sort of like engraving that goes right on those.
He did
Okay.
personalized water bottles for our kids, did
Yeah.
homeschooling together, and he did a personalized water bottle with the map of where we were, like
If you
which
send me his
houses we were
contact,
at. Oh,
Yeah,
it was
well,
awesome.
I'd
Yeah,
love
got his
to price
info.
out something because, yeah.
And they're local too, so
The nice
and they're
thing
awesome.
with having a single cup is then we can turn around and sell sponsorship.
Yeah.
The last couple of years, that's one thing that we've had organizations and businesses want to be the cup sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
But with the compostable cups, when you buy 100,000 of them,
Yeah.
it's not cost effective for you to get them customized. So we shied away from that. And then Bryn also asked, and I
Keeping Greg busy.
yeah. Dog park. When I became director about 4 years ago, there is a passionate group of people that want a dog park here in Exeter. There's over 2,300 dogs in Exeter that are registered. The problem is the town doesn't own land, really. We really don't have, and also, no one wants it next door to their house. So that's the one nice thing. So
Is there liability as well?
yes and no, Dan. For the town, there's no liability. It's similar to any recreational free opportunity. Like there's an RSA that protects anyone going in there. Some people question, depending on the maintenance of it and the liability. Like if we know the dogs go in there and dig massive holes and we're not going in and filling them,
Right.
we could be held negligent for not going in and fixing said holes. Same reason why we put the rubber mats underneath the swings.
Yeah.
Because technically, when you see the kids that likes to burrow into playground, that's actually something that isn't compliant for playgrounds and needs to be fixed daily. It's supposed to be. So when you don't see that, and that's why I've been a big push the last few years trying to get those rubber mats under there. Yeah, the kids will move them, but they're 150 pounds, so I want to see the kids that really want to move them. But it definitely, there's enough passion out there. If we could ever find a large swath of land, it would take quite a bit to develop it, honestly. Which, again, this group would probably go out and fundraise as well. But it's a great opportunity. I know you have a large dog park in downtown that is well used, but I mean, you need this past year with the dog pneumonia that was going around, like there's apprehension about people bringing their dogs to dog parks and sharing water and everything. So we're not there yet, but I think it ranks a little bit below disc golf Because I know a few people have approached about where can we develop a disc golf? And just give you guys, we need about 18 acres for disc golf to make a full 18 whole course. So we're looking, anyone out there wants to donate land to the Parks and Rec for development and for this recreation, contact me.
Greg, has the town ever looked to make any of its trails off leash for dogs?
That would be a Kristen Murphy and conservation question. I know some of the properties, they do not want dogs on there because they're close to waterways. So as it is, and I can't speak, conservation has a lot of property they manage, so it's hard to enforce anything like that anyways. And we ask that people are respectful that use the trail, so sometimes, and that's the one knock, and Molly and the board had to debate this a couple years ago, where we had to update our dog ordinance in our parks because for some reason there were some certain parks that were left out, Kids Park being one of them, and that was the biggest complaint that I think prompted the re-engagement of the ordinance, because here we are, the town invested $140,000 into a beautiful park, only to find out that people in the area were using it as a mini dog park because it was fenced in, and that was gross. So
Right. I meant like taking the trails off of, I don't walk the trails in Exeter
Yeah.
because you have to have your dog on leash, so I go to Stratham instead. But has there ever been a thought to allow those, I can't, Henderson Swayze or whatever it's,
Not that I know of.
no.
I am happy to talk to Kristen about it, though.
I was just curious.
Yeah,
I mean, a dog park is for dogs that maybe can't be let off leash. I have one of those as well. But, so, it's just a thought,
And again, there's no enforcement.
and there's no enforcement. Kristen's a powerhouse of one, and she has a lot on her plate because there's, Chris, do you know there's miles and miles of trails?
Yeah, and I often encounter dogs off leash out there. And
Yeah.
Usually respectful owners, but yeah, I don't know that it's been approved anywhere.
Yeah. But we work with Kristen a lot,
Yeah.
so I'll definitely bring it up, because one of the things I mentioned last meeting about coming up with the draft master plan for the parks, and I brought Kristen Murphy in because I look at conservation properties as being an opportunity for passive recreation, and she came up with a brilliant idea of making a matrix in it too, to list all the parks and the amenities and what's allowable and what's not allowable. So the volunteer is working on that, and I will get you a draft, Dan, to look at and peruse, but it's just a draft form. It's just because we have a long ways to go before we got to have public meetings and everything. So, but it's a good to bring everything into one document and look at it, because it's quite substantial, because this town seems to have plans here and here and here. And so trying to bring them all condensed into one. And once the bike and pedestrian study we want to bring aspects of that into it, because we talk about connectivity. So, I mean, there's a lot to it for the conservation, and it's growing. And hopefully we work together more with conservation to develop more programs, as in our charge here is to work with them. So that's a good question, and I'm happy as well, Molly, to bring it to Kristen and ask.
Okay.
And lastly, in agenda items, we started our process of hiring a new rec coordinator today. We had 2 interviews. We have 3 tomorrow. We had 48 applicants.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Which over half
Mostly
of them
local,
actually had the qualifications we were looking for, at least in the degrees in rec management, sports management, rec administration, yada, yada, all of those, or experience in the field. Then we narrowed it down to 12, which we then narrowed it down to 6.
Awesome.
One dropped out today, just because
really
of
great.
circumstances. So hopefully by the end of this week, we'll be having an offer out to a new rec coordinator. But we are the quality top 12 candidates were very impressive. And we got a lot from around the country as well. We had an applicant from Georgia State who's just graduating, Iowa, trying trying to think, a couple others, Colorado. So there's quite a few that applied. I don't think they know the cost of living around here. But the one from Colorado was actually from New Hampshire, and he was looking to move back, but realized that we couldn't meet his salary demand. So
Good news.
that's it.
Fantastic.
I went really as fast as I could. So 15 minutes, 12
Yes,
items.
thank you. Quick reminder,
Bar.
Yeah.
Santa's mailbox is up and ready by the 18th. Please get letters in because the elves do personally respond to each and every single letter. So please give those elves time to respond to those.
Please join us Thursday as we light up the downtown. Our holiday block party kicks off at 5. Reminder to anyone watching this that the road in front of Town Hall and Town Office will be closed at 2. Thank you, Exeter Police, for putting out that announcement, and we've shared it. The town will share it because it is a big traffic pattern displacement when you block it off. And bring your appetites. This year we have 5 food trucks that will be there. That we will definitely educate them, possibly the ordinance coming in, and the big guy will be there, and Olaf will also be walking around. So for those Frozen fans, Olaf will be there, and thank you, Dan, and the student council.
Yeah, student senate. I was just going to ask for the setup volunteers, 3 o'clock, 3:30. What time would you like them there?
3:30 should be fine.
3:30.
The event itself kicks off at 4.
Yep.
Santa arrives
At 5, yes.
Right, okay, so that's what it is.
That should be fine. We'll have everything ready to go.
And then as they did last year, they're
full
doing arts and crafts for us. So gingerbread houses. Dave has gotten
Is that
all
going to
the
be across
supplies.
the way, or where is
That will be right next to the bandstand. You'll see the Parks and Rec van come, and the Student Senate did an outstanding job
Awesome.
working with the kids, and it gave them something to do. But there's plenty to do that day. The gingerbread house, Festival of Trees, holiday block party. So, and there's a train that goes around that. Yeah.
Awesome.
Looks like it's going to be nice weather.
It's supposed
It
to be
does.
nice weather.
It is.
It's fantastic.
Saturday does not. Fingers crossed. I know. Brandon, Portsmouth has their parade. Exeter has their parade.
We'll be walking in those ones. Can we have an
We do
umbrella
not.
holders?
I don't not.
Yeah,
Bring a raincoat.
do it Sunday if it rains.
Yeah.
Ooh, do we have a rain date?
That's a good question. I can reach out to Beth Dupel and the parade committee to
Well, that would be
see.
good to know.
Yeah.
Because I can hear it all right now in my house. But it's raining. It'll be fun. Anything else for old business or new business that we have? All
I
right.
just want to give kudos to Dan and the community fridge. That's a big thing.
Yes.
I saw that posted
Yeah,
online.
community fridge is open. It is just outside the Y. It's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It is 100% mutual aid model, so there's no need to prove need. It's for anybody who needs it. And this week is sort of a soft opening, so it's really about getting the message out. And we have some sort of testing out of Sign Up Genius or the best way to get volunteers for fridge checks. Right now we're checking in the morning, the Y checks it during the day, and then we check it again at night for temperature, spoiled food, expiration date type things like that. But we'll be looking for people to help with food rescues from local restaurants. So end of shift stuff. Enna, Aroma Joe's already, they're wrapping up stuff at the end of shifts and putting it in the fridge so we can take all of that. The rules are posted on the fridge and on our social media page, Exeter Community Fridge. So
And we shared it on our social media page because it was a
that's
big,
great.
It's
big
awesome.
thing, which actually prompted an area business, Rolly Holers, to reach out, and they're going to be participating, I
Yeah.
think, down the line. Bob and them are over there great. So kudos to Dan and his
Mary Page,
wife.
it's hers. I'm just the muscle.
Thank you, Mary Page and Dan. It's an awesome resource for the town.
Yeah.
I'm so happy, thrilled.
First of many.
Yeah,
Put one over at
10 Hampton Road.
Hampton Road
Yep.
next year.
Sounds good.
awesome. Love it. Anything else, guys? I will entertain a motion to dismiss.
I move to adjourn.
I second.
Second? All right. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So you might like this one. I know Ryan.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.